God wants you to know something today, not tomorrow, not when things get easier, not when the breakthrough is visible and the evidence is undeniable and the proof is in front of you. Today, June 4th, in the middle of whatever is still unresolved, in the middle of whatever is still pressing, in the middle of the gap between what you have been believing for and what you can currently see, He wants you to know that you passed the test that May was, the season of holding on when holding on cost more than it should have cost, the extended waiting that tested whether your faith was real or conditional, the specific difficulties that were designed not to break you, but to reveal what was actually in you. All of it. You passed it, and God sees that. And God is not a God who sees faithfulness and says nothing. He is a God who responds, who honors what was demonstrated, who looks at what a chosen one carried through the testing season and says, I saw that, every day of it, every moment of it, every prayer prayed, and every tear that fell, and every time you almost stopped and chose not to. I saw all of it, and it counted. And now I want you to know what it produced. This is what June 4th is. The day God says, I want you to know what your faithfulness produced. Not because the manifestation is fully visible yet, not because every prayer has been answered in the form you expected, but because the spiritual reality that your faithfulness produced is already established, already real, already settled in the heavenly realm. And you deserve to know that before the natural realm has had time to fully catch up. You passed the test, and God wants you to know it. Now let me tell you what passing the test actually means, because I do not want this to be vague encouragement that sounds beautiful but lands as nothing. Passing the test in the context of what God was doing in the lives of chosen ones through May and through the Blue Moon process means something specific. It means that what was being built in you through the testing is complete, ready, solid enough to hold what is about to be placed on it. Think of it this way. When a new building is being constructed, the foundation is tested before anything is built on it. Not because the builder doubts the foundation, but because what is going to be placed on the foundation is valuable enough that the builder needs to know it can hold. The testing is not punishment. The testing is preparation for the building. May was the testing of your foundation. The difficulties were not attacks. They were assessments. God assessing whether what He was building in you through the season could hold what He was preparing to place on it. Whether the faith was deep enough, whether the trust was real enough, whether the character that was being formed was strong enough. And the assessment is complete, and you passed. And what God is ready to place on the foundation of what you demonstrated through May is significant. June is the building, and it begins today. Now I want to tell you specifically what God wants you to know, because I said He wants you to know something, and I want to be precise about what that something is, because chosen ones in the post-testing season need specific words, not general encouragement, specific truth about specific things. The first thing God wants you to know is that your faith was seen, every moment of it, including the moments when the faith was thin, when it was barely present, when it was more a stubborn refusal to give up entirely than it was a confident, joyful, unwavering belief in what was coming. God does not only honor the faith that looks good from the outside. He honors the faith that held on even when it looked like nothing from the outside. Even when it was just the quiet, private, almost invisible choosing to not stop believing. He saw that, and He wants you to know He saw it. The second thing God wants you to know is that the waiting was not abandonment. This is perhaps the most important thing He wants to say, because the specific lie that the enemy uses most effectively against chosen ones in extended waiting seasons is the lie of abandonment. The whisper that says God has moved on, that your situation is not on His radar, that the silence means absence, that the delay means He changed His mind, that you have been left. It was not abandonment, it was timing. There is a difference that is enormous in its implications. Abandonment means gone. Timing means not yet. And the not yet of everything you waited for in May was not God being distant. It was God being precise, arranging what needed to be arranged, clearing what needed to be cleared, building what needed to be built, on both ends of the blessing, in you and in the circumstances that needed to align for the blessing to arrive in its right form at its right time. The waiting was not abandonment, and God wants you to know that today, before the full evidence arrives. Because knowing it before the evidence changes how you receive the evidence when it comes. It comes as confirmation of what you already know, rather than as the first proof of something you were uncertain about. And the third thing God wants you to know is that what is coming is better than what you were imagining. This is the hardest thing to receive when you have been waiting for a specific thing in a specific form for a specific period of time, because the waiting creates a very specific shape for the expected arrival. And when God says what is coming is better than what you were imagining, the first internal response is often resistance. I have been specific about what I am believing for. I know what I need. I do not need better in some abstract sense. I need this specific thing. The temptation is to return to striving, to slip back into the posture of the testing season, to keep holding on after the holding on is no longer required, to keep the white-knuckle grip on faith even after God has already said you can open your hands now. The delivery is coming. The season has shifted. You passed. You can breathe. But chosen ones who have been in a long testing season often do not know how to receive without continuing to work. They have been in faith work mode for so long that rest feels irresponsible, that receiving feels passive, that simply being present for the blessing without effort feels like a failure of faithfulness. It is not a failure of faithfulness. It is the appropriate response to a completed test. When an exam is over, you put the pen down. You do not keep writing. The writing was for the test. The test is complete. And continuing to write after the test is complete is not faithfulness. It is a misunderstanding of what the season is now asking. June is asking you to receive, not to strive, not to hold on, to open your hands and let what is coming land in them. And that requires a different posture than everything may required. A posture of openness rather than gripping, of gratitude rather than petition, of confident expectation rather than anxious watching. Practice that posture today. Open your hands, breathe, and let June be what it is trying to be, which is the month of receiving after the month of testing. Now I want to speak specifically to the chosen ones who passed the test but who do not feel like they passed, who are looking at their current circumstances and thinking, if I passed, why does this still look so hard? If God sees my faithfulness, why is this situation still unresolved? If the test is over, why does everything still feel like a test? I want to address this directly and honestly. Passing the test does not immediately change the visible landscape of your life. The circumstances that were present at the end of the testing season are still present on the morning of June 4th. The unresolved things are still unresolved. The prayers, still unanswered in their expected form, are still waiting. The closed doors are still closed. The relationships that need healing are still in need of healing. Passing the test changes the spiritual reality, and spiritual reality precedes natural reality, always. The change happens in the spirit first, then it works its way into the natural world. And that transition from spiritual change to natural manifestation takes time. Not the extended, faith-draining time of the testing season, but measurable time, days, weeks, the time it takes for what God established in the spiritual realm to become fully visible in the natural realm. So if your circumstances still look hard this morning, that is not evidence that you did not pass. It is evidence that the transition is in progress, that the spiritual reality has been established and the natural reality has not yet caught up, and it will catch up. In June, in the specific, measurable, real-world ways that God has already arranged. Trust the process, even when the visible landscape has not yet reflected the spiritual reality, because the spiritual reality is the more real of the two, and it is already settled, already certain, already done. You passed, even if you cannot see it yet. Now let me close with something that I think is the most important thing I can say to you today. More important than the spiritual mechanics. More important than the explanation of what the testing produced. More important than the description of what is coming. God wants you to know that He is proud of you. Not just satisfied with your performance. Not just acknowledging that you met the minimum requirement. Genuinely, specifically, personally proud of who you were through the testing. Of the character you displayed. Of the faith you maintained. Of the integrity you held, of the choices you made when no one was watching, of the prayers you prayed when you were not sure anyone was listening, of the continuing to believe when the evidence said stop. He is proud of that, and He wants you to know it today. Because chosen ones who have been through what you have been through often carry a quiet sense of having failed somehow, of having not believed well enough, or prayed specifically enough, or held on faithfully enough, of having allowed too many moments of doubt, too many moments of wavering, too many moments of almost giving up. And God is specifically addressing that quiet sense today. He is saying that from His perspective, from the perspective of the one who saw every moment and who knows what each moment cost, you did not fail. You did not almost fail. You passed. Fully, completely, with the specific integrity of someone who was faithful when faithfulness was genuinely hard. That is who you are. And God wants you to know it. You passed the test. And what comes after the test is the reward that the test was always preparing you for. Receive it. All of it. Without guilt and without the sense that you need to earn it further. You already earned it. Through everything May asked of you. Write past in the comments if you receive this today. God sees everyone. Subscribe and turn on notifications. June is delivering day by day, and you need to be prepared for everything it holds. The next video continues the guidance. Now I want to go deeper on what the testing season actually produced in you, because I described it broadly as producing a foundation. But I want to get specific about the qualities that were formed through the specific difficulties of what you went through. Because knowing what was produced helps you recognize it, helps you operate from it intentionally, helps you understand why you are different today than you were when the testing began. The first quality the testing produced is the ability to hold faith in the absence of evidence. This sounds simple. It is one of the rarest and most significant spiritual qualities a person can carry. Most human beings are only capable of believing what they can see, what they can measure, what the evidence supports. And there is nothing wrong with evidence-based thinking. It serves well in most areas of life. But in the spiritual realm, in the area of what God is doing and what He has promised and what He is building in the lives of chosen ones, evidence always arrives after the faith. The faith is what calls the evidence into being, not the other way around. And a faith that requires evidence before it will believe is not actually faith, it is confirmation. And confirmation is valuable, but it cannot do what faith does. It cannot open what faith opens. It cannot call into being what faith calls into being. Through the testing of May, through the extended season of believing without visible evidence, you develop the ability to hold genuine faith in the absence of evidence. And that ability, now that it has been proven through difficulty, is one of the most powerful spiritual tools you possess. Because from this point forward, when God shows you something that is not yet manifested, you can believe it fully, without the need for evidence first, because you have proven to yourself and to God that your faith does not require the evidence to be real. The second quality the testing produced is the ability to distinguish between God's voice and everything else. When the testing season is most intense, when the difficulty is most pressing, there is enormous pressure on a chosen one to listen to voices that are not God's. The voice of fear, the voice of pragmatic reason, the voice of other people's doubt, the voice of circumstances that seem to argue against what God said. And sorting through all of that noise to find and hold on to the actual voice of God requires practice. And you practiced it for months. Every day of the testing season was a day of choosing which voice to listen to. And over time, through repetition and through the consequences of the choices, the ability to recognize God's voice became more reliable, more precise, more quickly distinguishable from the noise. And that ability, that developed discernment of God's voice, is going to be one of the most valuable gifts of the testing season in the months and years ahead. Because what God speaks in the season that follows the testing is going to require you to be able to hear Him clearly. And you can now hear Him more clearly than you could before May began. The third quality is resilience. Not the word of the day kind of resilience that gets used to mean bouncing back quickly. The deep, structural kind. The kind that has been tested and has not failed. The kind that has been through the specific things that used to seem like they might break you and has come out the other side knowing that they do not break you. That you survive them. That you are more capable of moving through difficulty than you previously understood yourself to be. This structural resilience changes the relationship with future difficulty. Not because future difficulty becomes easy, but because the fear of it changes. The catastrophizing that used to happen when difficulty appeared, the internal sense that this might be the thing that finally brings everything down, that sense loses much of its power, because you have been through difficult things, real ones, costly ones, and you survived. And the knowing that you survive, earned through actually surviving, is different from being told you are resilient by someone who has not seen you tested. You know what you are made of now. The testing showed you. And what you are made of is more than you knew before the testing began. Now I want to address something about June specifically, about the character of this month and what God is planning to do through it for chosen ones who passed the May testing. June is a month of acceleration. After the extended pace of the waiting season, after the slow and sometimes agonizing pace of the testing, June operates at a different speed. Things move faster. Doors that have been shut for extended periods open in days rather than months. Prayers that have been prayed for seasons receive specific, visible answers in ways that feel sudden. Connections that were being prepared for but had not yet arrived appear in unexpected but clearly arranged ways. And the accumulation of these movements, these accelerations, creates a momentum in June that builds on itself. Each open door makes the next one easier to open. Each answered prayer builds the faith for the next prayer. Each confirmation deepens the certainty that the season has genuinely changed. This is what acceleration feels like from the inside. Not like one dramatic single event, like a series of smaller events that keep coming, each one confirming the shift, each one building on the previous one, until the overall picture of your life in June looks unmistakably different from the overall picture of your life in May. And the acceleration begins today, June 4th, because the foundation is solid, because the testing produced what it was supposed to produce, because you passed. And God, who was waiting for the passing to begin the building, is now building. Pay attention to what happens this week, to the small but significant things, to the unexpected openings, to the prayers that receive visible movement, to the connections that appear, because each of these is the acceleration beginning, and the acceleration is not going to slow down. It is going to build all the way through June and into everything that follows. Now I want to speak to something that is important for chosen ones to understand about the relationship between the testing and the blessing that follows it. Because most spiritual teaching presents this as a simple sequence. You are tested, you pass, you receive the blessing. As if the testing is separate from the blessing, and the blessing begins when the testing ends. But that is not actually how it works. The testing does not precede the blessing. The testing is part of the blessing. The difficulty of May, the formation that happened through it, the qualities that were produced by it, those are themselves blessings. They are the most permanent and most valuable part of what God gave you through this season. Because the circumstances that are coming can change again. The doors that open can close in future seasons. The provisions that arrive can be consumed. The relationships that form can shift. But the faith that learned to hold in the absence of evidence does not disappear. The discernment of God's voice that was sharpened through the testing does not go away. The structural resilience that was built through surviving what felt unsurvivable does not diminish. These things are permanent. They go with you into every season that follows. They serve you in every difficulty that comes after. They make you more effective, more grounded, more capable in every area of your calling for the rest of your life. The testing was not the cost of the blessing. The testing was the blessing. And what comes in June is the additional blessing. The blessing of changed circumstances, of open doors, of answered prayer, of visible evidence of God's faithfulness, added to the permanent blessing of who you became through the testing. Both are yours, and both are significant. And both are evidence of a God who does not just deliver outcomes, but who builds people. Who does not just open doors, but who creates the version of the person who can walk through them with full capacity and full wisdom and full appreciation for what they have been given. That is who you are on June 4th. The person who has the permanent blessing of what the testing produced, and who is now beginning to receive the additional blessing of what June delivers. Receive both, with gratitude for both, and with the understanding that neither would be as significant without the other. You passed. God wants you to know, and June is the evidence. Write "passed" in the comments if this landed for you today. God sees everyone. Subscribe and turn on notifications. The acceleration of June continues tomorrow, and every day of this month holds something specific for chosen ones. You need to know what is coming. Now I want to speak to something practical about how to move through June 4th specifically, because knowing that you passed and knowing what that means spiritually is one thing. Knowing how to actually live this day in a way that honors what God is saying is another. The first practical instruction for today is to stop rehearsing the difficulty. Chosen ones who have been through extended testing seasons often carry the habit of rehearsing what they went through, returning to it mentally, replaying the hard moments, recounting the cost. And while acknowledgement of what the testing cost is appropriate and healthy, there is a specific point at which rehearsing the difficulty becomes an obstacle to receiving what follows it. That point is today. June 4th is the day to stop rehearsing May and start inhabiting June. Not by pretending May was not difficult, not by bypassing the genuine cost of what you carried, but by recognizing that the season of difficulty has served its purpose and that continuing to live mentally in that season prevents you from being present for the season that has replaced it. Put May down today, not forever, not without honoring what it cost. Just put it down long enough to look up and see what June is offering, because June is offering something, starting today, and you cannot receive it if your attention is still fixed on what May took from you. The second practical instruction is to make one decision today from the new position. Not a major life-altering decision necessarily. One decision, even a small one, that is made from the certainty of having passed the test, rather than from the uncertainty of still being in it. A decision that reflects the new ground you are standing on. That expresses the faith that the testing produced. That takes one small step in the direction that God has been pointing. Because the acceleration of June, the building that God is beginning on the foundation of what the testing established, is partly activated by your choices. Your choices signal to God what season you believe you are in. And a choice made from the certainty of June, rather than the anxiety of May, signals that you understand the season has changed, that you received the word, that you are ready to move. Make that choice today, whatever it is. Take the step that the clarity of June is inviting, even if it is small, even if it is uncertain, even if it requires a level of trust that feels uncomfortable after everything May required. Take it, because the taking of the step is itself an act of faith that God honors. And God honors the faith of June differently than the faith of May. In May, faith was rewarded with sustaining grace, the grace to keep going. In June, faith is rewarded with movement, with the opening of what was closed, with the arrival of what was prepared, with the visible evidence of the season that has come. Take one step today, in the new direction, from the new ground, and watch what God does in response. And the third practical instruction is to tell someone what God told you today, not to show off, not to seek validation, to speak the word into the natural realm, because words have creative power. And when a chosen one speaks what God said, when they declare the truth of their spiritual reality into the atmosphere of their natural reality, something happens. The declaration creates a bridge between what is true in the spirit and what is beginning to become true in the natural. And that bridge is traversed by what God is releasing from one realm into the other. So tell someone today, one person, someone who can receive it, someone who will not dismiss it or reduce it or explain it away. Tell them that you passed the test. Tell them that God sees your faithfulness. Tell them that June is the month of what your faithfulness produced. Speak it out loud, into the natural realm, and let the declaration cooperate with the delivery that God is already in the process of making. These three things, putting May down, making one decision from the new ground, and speaking what God said, are enough to set the tone for a June 4th that honors what the testing produced and cooperates with what God is releasing. Do them today, and let June begin in full. You passed. God wants you to know, and June is the evidence. Now I want to address the chosen ones who are reading this and feeling something unexpected, not relief or joy or the settled peace of having been seen and acknowledged. Something harder, a quiet grief, a mourning of what the testing cost, of the time it took, of the things that were lost or damaged or depleted in the process of getting through it, of the version of themselves that entered the testing season and is not fully the same on the other side. I want to say something to those chosen ones directly. The grief is valid. The cost was real. Passing the test does not retroactively make the difficulty painless, does not erase what was hard, does not restore what was genuinely lost in the process. And honoring the cost of what you went through is not incompatible with receiving what comes after it. Both can be true. The testing was costly and genuinely hard, and you are genuinely changed by it. And you passed it, and God sees it, and June delivers what the faithfulness produced. Both at the same time, not one instead of the other. God does not ask you to pretend the testing was not costly in order to receive what follows it. He asks you to receive what follows it alongside the honest acknowledgement of what it cost. And the receiving and the grief can coexist. They do not cancel each other out. They are both part of the full, honest experience of a chosen one on the other side of a significant testing season. So if the grief is present today alongside the receiving, let it be. Honor both, the cost and the reward, the difficulty and the faithfulness that moved through it, the loss and the life that continues after the loss. All of it is yours, and all of it is part of what God sees when He looks at you on June 4th and says, I want you to know that you passed. He sees the cost too, and He honors it. Now I want to speak to something specific about the relationship between passing the test and the people who watched you go through it. Because the testing season is rarely private, other people witnessed it. Some of them witnessed your faith. Some of them witnessed your struggle. Some of them were present for the moments when you almost gave up. And some of them, if they are honest, were not sure you were going to make it through. And there is something that happens in the post-testing season with those people that chosen ones need to be prepared for. Because the people who watch the testing are now going to watch what follows it. And what follows it is going to be evidence, to them and to you. Evidence of what the faith produced, of what the holding on produced, of what the refusing to stop believing produced. And for some of those people, the people who doubted, the people who tried to be helpful by encouraging you to be realistic, the people who gently suggested that maybe your expectations were too high or your faith was misplaced or you were setting yourself up for disappointment, the evidence of what your faithfulness produced is going to be significant. Not because proving them wrong is the point. It is not the point. But because the testimony of a chosen one whose faithfulness produced visible fruit is one of the most powerful things God uses to build faith in other people. Your story, The full story, including the difficult parts and the moments of almost giving up and the choice to continue and the faithfulness that God is now honoring. That story is not just yours. It belongs to everyone who is going to hear it. Everyone who is in their own testing season right now, wondering if the holding on is worth it, wondering if the faith is producing anything, wondering if God sees them the way He sees others. When they see what your faithfulness produced, something in them is going to be strengthened, encouraged, given a reason to hold on that they did not have before. Because your story is going to prove to them what their own journey has not yet proven. That the testing ends, that the passing is real, that what God builds through the difficulty is worth every moment the difficulty cost. Be willing to tell your story when the time is right, when what June delivers has become visible enough to be testified to. Not to perform your faith, or to impress people, or to draw attention to yourself, but to give someone else who is in the middle of their own May the thing that you needed when you were in yours. The evidence that the testing ends, that the faithfulness is seen, that God passes the people who hold on. Your story will matter to someone. Let it be told when the time comes. And finally, I want to say something simple, something that does not require explanation or spiritual mechanics or extended context. If you are reading this on June 4th and something in you recognized itself in this message, that recognition is not wishful thinking. It is not you finding what you wanted to find in words that could apply to anyone. It is a specific response to a specific truth about your specific journey. God is not a God of general encouragement sent to masses of people who might find it relevant. He is a God of specific words to specific people at specific moments in their specific stories. And this word, on this day, found you, not accidentally, because you are the person this word was always going to reach on June 4th. You passed the test. Not in theory, not as a general category of person who went through difficulty. You specifically, in your specific circumstances, with your specific faith, through your specific cost. And God is specifically proud of you. Receive that today, fully, without minimizing it, without qualifying it, without immediately asking what comes next or what you need to do now to maintain it. Just receive it, for a moment. Let it land without immediately being processed or acted upon or turned into the next task. You passed. God sees you, and June is yours. Write "passed" in the comments.